you, Carol. Alright guys, thank you, the three of us, for being here today.
And how many online? We don't know
how many is online, yeah. So today
last count I saw was 40.
Yeah, about that. So today we are lucky to have Deep, right? Deep has been a good friend for a long while. You started to come to Singapore when you were with TCS, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was maybe 15, 18, 20, 10 years ago?
Yeah, it was 17 years ago.
17 years ago, wow. So you actually helped establish a consulting division for TCS here.
Yes,
right?
TCS operations.
Before you're now on your own, right? So I won't steal away your thunder, right? So what I'll do is that I'll just pass the floor to you, right? Okay?
Right.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you, Jax. Jax, thank you for inviting me.
Sure.
TechR, I must say, has been one of the innovative platforms that I have seen over last 1 year evolving and getting some wonderful people onto the platform and share their wonderful journey as well as their disruptive technologies that they are bringing. So when Jack asked me to come and talk about myself or my entrepreneurial journey, I was a little surprised that I'm not sure. I don't fit into this technology world. I talk about something, I've come out of it painfully, and it took a lot of pain, a lot of courage, and now I'm doing something which people find a lot of value in talking about. So I thought, why not? If he is ready to take the risk, I am ready to plunge into it. So I'll talk about how I have got out of this corporate life of mine over last 25 years, where I've spent 25 years, and then how I am trying to work on my own. So just to give, I tend to go into storytelling, so that's a weakness of mine. So just to get myself disciplined, I have put together some slides. Do not talk about too much knowledge, it just talks about what is helping me to do what I'm doing. So, I was just a little bit of myself, as Chuck was saying. So I spent last 25 years in technology industry, specifically IT, products and services side, predominantly on the services side. Fortunate to be working with one of the most prestigious group in India, Tata Group, and had been very, very fortunate to be with them for 18 years and have done a lot of international, I'll say, market development and business development for Tatas all across the globe, and have got tremendous exposure because of that in this specific field. Now, people do feel like, okay, why don't starting a business, just go there, start a business, how much it takes. But I know when we talk about our entrepreneurial friends, when we speak to them, they really understand what it takes to go into a new market, establish it right from scratch and do it. So one of the things that I found is a niche for myself is how to create new markets, and also something which I've done relatively well, I must say, because I'm able to sustain myself. So I say I've done relatively well. So I've done that in Middle East, 7 countries for Tatas, and then got this beautiful and very challenging engagement to start Tata operation in Singapore way back in 2001. So as ever, I had a lot of cushion, I had a lot of liberty, I have a lot of time on my hand, which typically when we look at an entrepreneur, we don't have. Time is not a luxury for an entrepreneur, but I had all the luxuries, which was giving me a lot of cushion. So I came to Singapore, I established a couple of Tata Group companies, did relatively well, and eventually became the CEO for TCS Singapore, and did that. So it created a lot of cushion, gave me a lot of comfort. But again, being a business development guy, which has market development guy doing a lot of market strategy, it tend to get boring. When you get laid down by the process. You have to just be on the treadmill, keep running, and you can't do anything disruptive. You have too many factors to be very, very mindful of, including the brand, including the risk of not trying anything new. Just try the time-tested method, which I will talk about later. So I was too much comfortable. I was having a lot of safety net and cushion created, and yeah, a position which I have enjoyed with a great zeal. Being a CEO and a director in a Tata Group company, being an Indian, let me tell you, it is one of the most respected thing that you can achieve. One of the most respected thing, before the startup world took over. So everyone wants, oh, you are in Tata Group? Okay, fine. So the day I thought I should challenge myself and come out of Tata Group, the first person to call me mad was my father. I said, you mad. No one leaves a Tata Group. Especially you are a director and a CEO. But I have to challenge myself. If I continue, I'll continue like this. So I challenged myself, came out, did a couple of more very interesting corporate engagements. Very fortunate to have some wonderful people around me who are mentoring and guiding me all over. To name a few, Mr. Girija Pandey, everyone knows in Singapore, most of the people know. He was chairman for Tata Group for long, and now he is also quite active in the consulting scene, as well as quite active with a couple of government initiatives, and quite engaged in Indian Business Roundtable. So some of the initiatives, wonderful guy, kept on guiding me, and then I was most lucky. So I'm talking about the switch now. So my last engagement was with NTT Group, one of the division of the NTT Group, Japanese. So how the switch happens, so it's very important. Most of the people feel, and whomever I talk to in last 5 months, always says, Deep, you have done one of the most courageous things. Spending 25 years in corporate life and coming out of it on your own. It's one of the craziest things that we have ever heard. Especially when you are on a time in your life where you are not retired. So you don't call yourself a consultant. You're not retired, and you still have a lot of parental duties to look after. Your monthly bills to look after. So people around me will always talk, how can you do this? So I must give credit to a great entrepreneur whom I came in contact with. So the story goes like this. So again, just to challenge myself and it tend to get more boring, 2013 I decided to start this business. I went to another entrepreneur who had sold his company successfully to NTT Group, Mr. Harish Nim from Emerio, an amazing personality, amazing guy. And then he said, 43 is not the age, Deep, to launch your own. Why don't you do strategy for a Japanese group for 3-4 years? Do something more, learn something more, and then probably you're ready. So he guided me very well and he brought me in. So I had some wonderful time with him, and the day he started realizing that I'm getting too comfortable, he again started challenging me as an entrepreneur. So a lot of credit goes to him. He again reminded me of my dream and my vision that I want to launch my own company, and he said, now let's not delay. And whatever support you need, I am ready to provide to you. But go out there and get out of this safety net, which you think is good for you because it will take you down. You won't be able to realize your true potential. I think most of us who become entrepreneur, they want to test themselves. This is at least what I feel. They want to test themselves. They have a strong belief and passion in themselves, and they feel they can create a difference. And they want to contribute. At the same time, they don't want to get restricted. And if I call this corporate mayhem of governance and processes, they want to have free flow creativity happening. But this is what I felt. So it was not easy for me to leave this position, this respect, and leave the safety net behind, and did. But credit goes to Mr. Harish Nim as well, who pushed me really hard to do this. And once I was able to do this, one of the fundamental things that I decided was, if I want to do it, I want to keep it simple and straight. You cannot take too much of risk when you're on your own. You don't have a safety net behind. You don't have a cushion behind. And you want to generally look at what is the best that you can do. We always do a lot of assessment, especially when we are hiring people. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And as a human being, we tend to bring down people on their weaknesses. But we always forget it's their strength that brings them up. So this is something which I have always learned, that I can't cover all my weaknesses. So I have to focus on my strength. And if I have to be on my own, then straight and simple, I want to focus on what has been my strength. And how can I use it to create difference for the people, for the system, for the community around me, for the target customer segment which I am thinking I can create tremendous value for, and which I will speak to you about, that what are the segment that I thought I can create value. And touch wood, 5 months, I still feel I am on the right path. I hope it continues like this, fingers praying. So I started focusing on my strength, and when I list down, when Jack asked me that why don't you speak here, so I thought let me give a structure to my thoughts and go it. So I put down my strength, and when I did my assessment, then I'm able to pick up technology fast. The understanding of working of technology. A lot of people get bogged down by protocols. What are the protocols? How is the technology working? How are the devices communicating? I believe if it is communicating, we should use it, rather than trying to understand how they are communicating. There are people who are making it communicate. Let them do their job. If the devices are communicating, how we can use it to address the business problem. So I have a belief. I understand technology very well. I can blend it to address business problems. I can visualize that. And that is what people have always said around me. My seniors, my peers, or my team working for me, always have said that yes, this is something that you can visualize the business problem. You can come out with a very simple solution, high level schematics, and then which can be translated into technology schematics, etc., etc. So, and because of these 15 years in Southeast Asia, extensive traveling, I understand the market segment very well. The cultural gaps which exist between different country people, the expectation, how they behave, how they engage, how they talk, what are the processes they would love to follow, how they want to go through a cycle of a specific technology adoption. So if I understand all that, can I put all of these together and say this is what I can offer to organizations who want to expand in Southeast Asia? Now in my journey I have come across, my fingers are less to count those companies who I have directly interacted and who are really struggling how they can expand in Southeast Asia. It's a complex geography. It's not like US that you conquered one state, you can conquer all other 10 states. In Southeast Asia, you conquer Malaysia. It doesn't mean necessarily you can conquer Singapore or Philippines or Indonesia. Everything is different. Market is different. People are different. Expectation, behavior, culture. So how I can package these services together and bring it in front of the companies that I can help you grow in Southeast Asia. This is pretty much different than, oh, can I take your distributorship, or can I represent you, and can I take your marketing responsibility? No. Who is your brand ambassador here? Who is letting your brand know in the market? And before letting your brand know in the market, do you really have a brand? Is it working in the market? What are the case studies? How we can develop those case studies so that we can present to the market in a very efficient manner, in a trustworthy manner, that this is a brand you should go for. For any organization who wants to go for a kill in the market, they should have these credentials with them. How we can do that, and what are the values that, what are the credentials that market values? For an example, my experience have told me that if in Singapore, for an example, I have to position something and gain respect for positioning, it helps if I have a European or an American case study. It won't necessarily help that much if I have an Indian case study. It is nothing wrong against the market. It's the maturity that market looks at. Adaptability, oh, you have been accepted in American market, probably you will work here. You will have more listening ears to your solution. This is just one very small example. So packaging all of these together to bringing out with my personality, how I can package and give this particular services to customers. This is what I brought out. And then the most difficult part came, being an entrepreneur. Yes, I have packaged it together, but I've always enjoyed being a thinker and having a team around me who does all the things if I guide them. I don't have that luxury anymore. So I have to switch a lot of my personality traits, and which is basically a suggestion to the entrepreneurial friends also, or people who are trying to think what they will be up against if they switch from their corporate careers to entrepreneurship. What are some of the switches that they have to make which are difficult? You're not only a thinker, but you are also the doer. It's you who are supposed to do everything now. There won't be anyone. You can't afford to have a team for you in the beginning. I wish everyone gets a team very soon. They get so much of success. They get a team. They get a department for doing everything. Yeah, that will follow. Success will follow. But first, the initial change that has to be brought in my personality is you're not only the thinker, you're also the thinker and doer. That's the biggest change. And obviously, less talking and more listening. You are talking, you are giving direction to the team, you are giving direction to your business division. You are always telling them, do this, do this, do this. Now, you are on the receiving side. You have to listen more. You have to understand what's happening in the market, where I can create myself, where are the opportunities, where I can position myself, where are the solutions that I can create. What are the gaps? Listen. Do more listening, and active listening is very, very important now. And always believed in doing something which is time tested. Do this more, it will work. But entrepreneurship is not about that. Unless you are new, unless you are able to differentiate yourselves, unless you are able to position yourself differently in the market, where market sees a lot of value about what are you bringing different into the market, they won't listen to you because they are established players. To do something old and time tested, they are established players, they are established companies. They always want you to be disruptive. You should be bringing some new thoughts. So how you change your personality? Corporate personality always is do something which is time tested, reduce the risk involved, push more and get more top line, and in result get a bottom line. Entrepreneur, you have to always think new, different. Doesn't matter if it is not perfect. So this is the last point. Do not wait for perfection. Perfection is a luxury now. As long as it is good, please take it to the market. Time will perfect it anyway. Once people adopt it, you will bring it. And I think Apple App Store is the biggest example of this. Some of the applications, the basic version comes, and then every fortnight you will see an update coming. So by getting customers, they are perfecting themselves. And this is what I believe a wonderful thing, and entrepreneurs are supposed to do that. This is what I believe. To bring the cost low, keep the cost low, and continue doing it. This is the most interesting aspect of my entrepreneurial journey, which I have to talk about. It has been 5 months now, getting into the 6 months, but some of the learnings that I've got. So first of all, the most optimum use of your limited resources that you have in an entrepreneurial journey. Time, every minute is important. You do not have a luxury. There is no paycheck which is going to come at the end of the month, the way it comes in a corporate life. Even if some of the tasks are not done, it will come. You don't have that luxury. Time is your most valuable resource now. And yes, money. You have limited money. You are an entrepreneur. You have whatever fund you have, which you are breaking from your fixed deposits or your retirement fund or your savings or whatsoever you call it, to create your entrepreneurial life. Every cent count. So is the biggest resource. And the third and most important aspect, which I believe is a soft currency, is your connects. How many favors can you ask from your people? So you rather start valuing others' time and only reach out to them when you really have to get something for yourself, and they should see that trust that you are putting into them. They should be able to see that, because no one alone can grow. I believe it's an ecosystem. It's a soft ecosystem around you which helps you grow, which people get together. It's a human tendency. People get together to help you grow, because if you grow, they will grow. That everyone feels, unless you go so horribly wrong that they feel betrayed. These are the three most important resources on which I believe this is a learning that I've got. And then yes, when you are in a corporate world, you can afford to say no to customers. But here, you should be ready to jump into the fire. Once you get business, they can ask anything and everything to build their trust and confidence in you. You should be ready to walk the tightrope, ready to jump in the fire. And work-life balance definitely goes for a toss. But very interestingly, being a corporate guy for 25 years and switching to entrepreneur, I should say that work-life balance becomes easier. That's my experience. I'm not sure how many of my entrepreneur friends will talk about it, but for me, the whole family stood up supporting me. And for them, they are creating balance more than me. They are the one who are there to create the work-life balance for you. When you're in a corporate life, they demand share of their time and attention. But when you're on your own, they create the work-life balance. But this is again a journey to create a work-life balance. Otherwise it breaks down the people. Just the family expectation will break down the people. Juggling priorities, you can't afford to drop any. Things will come from all directions when you're an entrepreneur, when you're out. And it's such a beautiful world that people talk about all kind of possibilities to work with you. Or rather, if you have to put it in a crude way, how they can make the max and best use of you for mutual benefit. So you have to do a lot of juggling of priorities. So suddenly people feel you are available. So how you can help me? But at the end, they end up helping you also, if you are ready to help them. So this is something which is mutual give and take, and a lot of juggling happens. You can't afford to drop balls. Swallow your pride. This is a tough one. I have come across people in last 15, 17 years when the entrepreneurship, especially in last 7, 8 years when entrepreneurship has really caught on. I have seen people who find it difficult to swallow their pride. Oh, I had been a CEO. Why should I be doing this? You should come to meet me rather than me going and meeting you. Or rather, why are you treating me like this? If I have to simply say that. I think we should be ready to swallow our pride. At the end of the day, we are an entrepreneur and we want to build something for us. And it takes all kind of experiences to walk that path. So this is one of the most humbling factor, I will say. If you're ready to be humbling, I think world is there out to help you. They don't walk on your ego. If you're ready to drop the ego, I think it becomes smoother. Squeezing the last cent, I have already spoken about it. Each and every cent counts and you have to squeeze that. And very interesting is facing the worst lead. We always say there are 3 types of leads. People who say they want to buy, or rather people say yes, they say they don't want to buy. Easy. It's not a lead anymore. People who don't say anything, who just keep accepting it, it's bad. Who keep calling you, who keep talking the third one is the most dangerous, the worst lead. People who say yes, but they never intend to buy. I think this is something which we encounter or we learn how to and filter them out. It will help in the entrepreneurial journey a lot. It will save a lot of all the 3 resources. It will save a lot of them, your hard and soft currency. The worst lead, people who say yes, but they never intend to buy from you. So they keep you engaged. And then gradual move. So entrepreneurs, especially in the field like me or myself, they start as generalists. I can do a lot of business solving, I can do a lot of business, but gradually you have to become a specialist. Whether it is a vertical domain, where we say I am a banking or healthcare or education specialist now, either you gradually shift towards that, or I am very focused on these 2 countries, not these 6. Start building a sharper focus and start becoming a specialist, and to get more and more respect. So people do talk about this within 5 months to me. Okay, what do you specialize in? Yeah, you do these, but now let's focus on specialties and let's talk about your success case studies. So funnily, I started focusing on banking and financial services and healthcare, and I suddenly find there is a dark horse education which is coming up and which is delivering faster excitement into the discussion than anything else. So you have to start focusing on that, how you become a specialist. How much time do you have? As much as you want. Okay. So just a quick one. I have borrowed this picture and I found it very, very interesting and suiting to the entrepreneurial journey which I talk about. So if you see on the left side, this is basically I'm trying to cook a recipe for me, for my entrepreneurial success. What is it? So I do have a lot of passion. So one kind of passion, yes. I have a lot of confidence. So it talks about, yes, you have to bring a lot of confidence. But unless I have luck on my side, I don't think I can do anything. Or rather, any one of us. So you need a lot of luck. A lot of hustling here and there. And some solution which can actually create all of these for us. Now, having said that, it needs, along with that, it needs lots of garnishing, which we provide, and then yes, a cooking method. So to make our entrepreneurial thing successful. So, in the cooking and the process we go through, roast with rejection, mash in motivation, garnishing with glory, and seasoning it with secret sauce. Other ingredients, as we talk about, obviously it needs a lot of ingredients. We talk about time, we talk about money, we talk about a lot of support from our well-wishers, friends, your mentors, your connects, your network coming into the picture. Everything has to go in for your success. But this is something which makes a complete thing successful. And one of the most important things that I have found, which has kept me going, and this is something which I wanted to touch upon importantly along with all this, that one thing which I thought I have done nicely and always did and found a lot of value in doing this is continuous education. So the arrow is not visible, but yeah, pardon me for this projection thing. There is an arrow which is driving it upwards. But during my entrepreneurial journey at every stage, I kept on ensuring that I'm going through some kind of a formal education, specializing in the area. So I'll give you some examples. So while I was CEO and running a $100 million unit for Tata's here, it was just going to breach 100 million Singapore dollar at that time. A lot of emphasis on revenue and how to do that well, and did this. So did a detailed course in education on revenue realization, I think, which becomes one of the most important aspects in any corporate. Auditors specifically grill you on that. How much revenue are you realizing? Whether your top line which you are showing in the books is realistic or non-realistic. Have you really got it? So did a complete course on that. And then on the effective CEO, when I was CEO for TCS, how to lead the whole unit and did the whole team and etc. And more innovation when I started coming, I did a certificate program from MIT on user innovation. A very interesting program which again helped me understand the innovation world and entrepreneurial world tremendously. And how we can bring those small changes in life which can actually change the world. So some wonderful examples doing that. And then to get into this specific strategy and market advisory business and consulting, I am doing a very detailed executive program in general management, which is focusing on strategy and innovation. So again from MIT, it's a 1 year long program. online and offline both. So in campus, off campus, highly demanding, but again brings a lot of knowledge about the latest things that are going in the world. It focuses deeply on strategy and innovation, and then makes you ready to address these challenges in the world. So one of the most, so this is something which I found I was lucky enough to come across the right things. Yes, I did make some small investigations and search for what are the right things for me to do. But I think it's very important for all of us who wants to be successful to focus on continuous education and keep on undergoing the changes that are happening in the ecosystem, etc. So that has kept me alive, I must say. Last but not the least, talking about my company. So I was very, coming from strong brand names, I always thought that you have to get things right. You know, I faced questions in life where people do talk about what does your logo means? Why this? Why are you doing this? And what does the logo mean and everything? So my business started with the thought process when I put down the business which I want to put together and what is the problem that I'm trying to solve in the world. Is specifically, in a nutshell, it talks about growth, which is reflected in the name, Augment. Growth-based solutions, so Augment Sol. Augment solutions, and then because it's growth, the arrows have to go upwards. You know, everything has to go upwards. You have to grow in life. So you cannot have flat or a plateau or going down, etc. Then I was addressing three major challenges of the organization. Two are internal, one is external market facing. So I drew three arrows. That was my thought process. Because I had luxury of designing the logo before launching the business. I had time on my hand. I was working on this for last 3 years now, so before I got into it. And then red to blue is very specifically red ocean to blue ocean. You know, red ocean, full of competition, and you want to create for yourself something which is where you can do your business peacefully. So red ocean to blue ocean was the transformation. So this is a small story about how me, a hardcore corporate guy, has switched to being an entrepreneur, and what am I trying to do and creating this company called Augment Sol. Do visit www.augmentsol.com. Please give your comments, your feedback. I'll be more than happy to take your comments and help me incorporating those comments and improving company and service. Bear in mind, just 5 months old. It's not perfect. Just getting there. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Any questions? I'll be more than happy to take up. And
what habits have you taken from corporate life? Have you taken and implemented as a regular part of your startup now?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
You have a very storied corporate background, right?
Yeah.
So what have you taken? Like, you know, what? So you obviously left quite a lot behind.
Yes.
But what have you taken that you've?
What have I taken from there?
Yeah, that you're doing.
Okay. I think to me, standing confidently here, everything goes and over to my corporate life, and I give you some examples. The biggest things that I have got from the corporate life is obviously all the learnings. The success is how it comes. How is it difficult to keep riding the success wave? More than that, how you have to ensure what you need to do to continue riding the crest of that particular success wave. How to avoid failures. Now that learning is something which I have packaged, which I am positioning to the companies. That's my offering. Where I say, I know why you fail. I know what is the problem. I can feel it. I can see it. So I restrict my customer segment to IT product and services companies. The biggest segment who are not there in Southeast Asia, but they want to be here. but they don't know how to crack this puzzle. Now, unless I had been on the other side and seen and addressed that problem, I don't think I can do it. It will become a theory. But more than theory, I have 15 years of practical experience of addressing and solving that, backed by another 12 years of hardcore technology background, which basically helps in packaging and addressing this problem. More than theory, it's a quite down to earth practical approach, how to go about it. Now, most of the people, they forget that there is a strategy step to be done. Whether it is small or detailed doesn't matter, but you have to be very much clear on what you want to do in the market. Because every question, if you don't have that and you straight away jump into market development by spending money there, within 6 months your boardroom will start dragging you down saying, oh, you spent so much there, where is the result? And why you have not put down a strategy together first? So that's a very critical step that people follow, right from vision. But most of the companies say, okay, vision I have, but I don't have the strategy in place. So address the strategic gap, help them in building the strategy, help them in executing that strategy, and then provide the market access while execution. So unless you have seen the world from there, it's very difficult. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've carried. And the whole network that has been built because of these corporate houses, it's not easy to build. Who recognizes you otherwise? There are thousands of people like us. Hope I answered.
Well, I understand that's what you offer the market. It's all that wealth of experience. You've got that knowledge, man. So I'm just thinking in terms of your own, because now you're breaking out as an entrepreneur, right? So your own structure, where you are, your own company. One example is how big a group for yourself, your own company. How big you set up your organization? How much delegation do you do, or is it how much of it is one man show? How much of it, you know those things. So what I'm saying is, what are the good habits from corporate life that you take into your running your own business, not your client's business, but your own business, and what have you cast aside and said no more of that?
Very difficult to answer that because corporate life habits and entrepreneurial habits are completely different.
Yeah.
So that's where I thought about, in fact, thank you for asking this question. Yesterday when I was thinking about it, I also thought, what is so different? This is actually the crux of the entrepreneurship, where you have to completely change yourself. I can only say one thing in corporate life, yes, it brings a lot of process discipline in you. Process discipline is very, very important, which, if not on the very first day in your entrepreneurial journey, you will very soon see the need of incorporating that step by step. Because your things will start growing and you have to juggle. And unless you have that process implemented there, now process is a loose word that we are using and it can be anything. Even reaching in a meeting on time is a process. Unless you incorporate that process with discipline, it will be very difficult to expect as much success as you think you can receive. That's the first thing. So the biggest thing that I get is the knowledge about the process and the governing mechanism. You have to bring in governance because the team will start growing. And then how to govern the team. Now, not every person is a born leader who can govern the people around him or who can command the people around him. But process and governance brings that specific habit into you. Even if you're not a leader, by just following the processes and governing with a timetable helps you achieve a lot.
I guess in other words, you're probably talking about structure and discipline.
Structure and discipline.
Actually, is the one that you brought.
Ridden with process and governance. So this is something which is
I was also thinking back. I also had about 10 years of corporate life before I started. I think you could be absolutely right. It's the discipline and the structure that the corporate has placed upon you. Then you figure out what structure you want, and what structure you don't want, right?
Yeah.
But you have chosen a very interesting business in the sense that you have actually two sets of clients, right? One set of client is the client that you represent.
Yeah.
The other set of clients is actually your client's client, which is basically the business.
Which is the business, and also the third segment, which is again interesting, is again there are companies in Southeast Asia today which are struggling. They're basically they have reached where they are in middle of nowhere. They want to grow, they don't know. They don't have the process and governance knowledge of $1 billion plus company. They don't know what to do. And if they want to bring in a process expert full time, they can't afford. What will you do? You can go to the large consulting organizations who will charge you tons of loads of money for even a 1 month exercise if they want to do it. But if you are going into the middle segment, and that's where people like us come in, who can pick up that specific business challenge and very quickly provide you a simple solution for that, which then obviously rigorously you have to follow and do it. So I have my case study, like if I have to give you an example. So one of the area where I focus a lot is how to improve your customer and relationship management. Most of the time many of the entrepreneurs, successful ones, they clearly know this. So they become a specialist, as I put in the last line, and they focus on a specific set of customers, and they mine them, mining and which is very much similar to farming. Farming and hunting are the very typical words that we use in business development. But farming is something which is such a specialized skill. But people tend to forget that. And they're always behind hunting. Have you added more customer? Have you added more customer? You are leaving the customer behind. He can do so much for you. So much. And when I present these case studies to organizations, it enlightens them. And they also say this is something which they're missing. And this is again, there is a lot of process and a lot of governance which comes into implementing a customer management framework. Customer and relationship. More than customer, I will talk about relationship. Because in the world, everything is relationship at the end of the day. As long as I am comfortable with you, I'll give a lot of business to you. Even if you are charging me a premium, I'm okay. Because I know you will meet my needs. So, there are companies where as soon as I led this and brought it in, they can see a huge difference over 15 months, 18 months. Because it takes time to implement that, to give confidence to customer that suddenly why our behavior is changing, why we are becoming more attentive to you. The customer also sees this pattern very nicely, I never see you in 1 year and now suddenly you start appearing every month. Why? Very interesting case studies, which I present when I talk about this customer and relationship management frameworks. Very hard for organizations to change their DNA and start focusing on this. Especially the organizations which are stuck in middle. These are the companies which have reached, $100 to $200 million kind of a revenue. They feel they have done everything in life. They have achieved, but they suddenly come under pressure that they are not able to grow. I know some organizations which are amazingly successful organization in terms of their product. Revenue never, from last 10 years, it's flat.
Yeah.
It's flat. Every 2 years they change their structure, but they forget why it is flat. You call them up today, ask them, do you have a customer relationship management framework? They don't have. It's flat. It never grows. All their customers, which are large banks, are growing every day. Can you believe it? The customers are growing, they are not growing. Hard to believe. But the companies who have done it well, so I gave a biggest example of TCS for an example, they've consistently grown on these frameworks. They live and breathe these frameworks. So that's why consistently 97% of their revenue will be repeat business from existing customers. Mind you, they're growing 10 to 12% year on year, but still 97% remains 97%. So the business is also growing with these customers. You have to grow with the customers.
Any other question?
Very
So,
interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dave. Really appreciate you coming and sharing with us, right?
Thank you, Jack.
We have pizza, right? So we can
Sure.
have a discussion over pizza.
Yeah,
Guys,
why
thanks a
not?
lot.
Thank you. Thank you.